Welcome to LawNext PR, the podcast where we put a spotlight on the latest news coming out of the legal tech industry. This is Bob Ambrogi, and on each sponsored episode of LawNext PR, I interview legal tech companies about their latest news and developments. Today we're talking about a newly announced strategic partnership between two AI-powered legal solutions for in-house legal teams, the legal workspace LawVu, and the contract drafting and review solution ClauseBase. And joining me to discuss the news are the CEOs of the two companies, Maarten Truyens, co-founder and CEO at ClauseBase, and Sam Kidd, the co-founder and CEO at LawVu. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
So you've just announced this new integration, this new partnership, and I want to get into the details of it and talk a little bit more about it. But just for the advantage of anybody watching right now who may not be familiar with your companies, let's back up and start there. Sam, why don't you start by kind of giving us a little bit of the background of LawVu and what you do?
Certainly. So at LawVu, we are a powered legal workspace, and that sounds like a lot of buzzwords. So to kind of break that down, what we really are is everything from intake of the business, so the way that business users engage with legal, through to matter management, so the document management, the collaboration between the legal teams working with each other, and then through the contract management spend where they're engaging with the law firms, and then the advanced reporting analytics. So you really look at us as the kind of like the sales force of legal. So it's everything to do with the day-to-day workflow and operations of a corporate legal team.
And again, all focused on corporate legal, corporate operations, those sorts of users.
100% built from the ground up for in-house legal. I know there's a lot of products out there, and people often think of law firms and in-house legal teams where there's both lawyers, but their business model, the way they work and operate is just completely different. So actually being built from the ground up from day one for helping corporate legal teams with their day-to-day workflows has been kind of key, and I suppose it's led to our success over the last 10 years.
And Maarten, what about you? Tell us about ClauseBase and what you do.
Yeah. Hi. So ClauseBase is a document reviewing, document drafting solution. We are a hybrid toolbox, as we like to call it. A set of pro tools for every lawyer out there, whether you're in-house or part of a law firm, whether you want to do drafting new clauses, whether you want to draft a completely new document from scratch. So we do document automation, we do redrafting, we do comparisons, we do all kinds of cleanup. So really a mix of, on the one hand, Gen AI, of course, there's half of the toolbox is Gen AI, but the other half consists of the more traditional, the precise tools to make your drafting as quick and as precise and as reliable as possible.
Probably most pertinent here today is you have the product ClauseBuddy, which is a Microsoft Word add-in, which brings a lot of this functionality right into the Microsoft Word environment.
Yeah, indeed. So it runs in Word. That's home territory for all the lawyers out there. It is also running in Outlook or in the browser, but Word is definitely the environment where the software will shine, where it can immediately interact with all the documents that you've opened.
And for anybody watching this right now or listening to this right now, if you want to see how it works, we have a separate video we recorded with ClauseBase of ClauseBuddy called How It Works video. You can just search on YouTube for ClauseBuddy or How It Works and find that there. So you've just announced this integration between these two products. Who wants to start? Can you explain to me what this means, what it is you've announced here?
Yes, certainly. I suppose the nice thing is we've been working together for the last year, and I think the key thing with partnerships is really the focus around the customer experience. And I think what we've really wanted to do with this is look at the mutual customers that we have is like, how do we make that a seamless experience for people that are utilizing LawVu's workspace, and then obviously they want to do the contract drafting tools. So we've been working together to make sure that the two systems actually speak seamlessly together. And so it just becomes a natural flow of information moving between two systems, which really just speeds up the process and makes it incredibly easy for customers to get on board, and also just the transfer and movement of data between the two systems. I think that's normally where good integrations go to die, as people talk a good game about the systems working seamlessly together, and then you get into the real world and find that they don't. So the two teams have been kind of working tirelessly over the last year to kind of make that a seamless process and just a more enjoyable process for the legal teams that utilize this.
Maarten, anything you want to add to what Sam just said?
Yeah, when about a year ago we found each other, we were really happy in the sense that we were often asked by customers like, do you do workflow? Do you do document repositories? Is that also something that we can come buy your product for? And we were like, no, that's not what we do. We are drafters. We are reviewers. We see ourselves more as the operating room of the doctor. So you roll in the patient, which is the Word file. You do some things to it, and then you roll out the patient again, and the patient will rest somewhere else, which would then be, for example, the LawVu platform, and that's where we were really happy to have a product that is so complementary to what we were doing without any overlap. So the integration could really be like, where are the points that we need to connect? Let's do this. Let's make this as seamless as possible for the end user to enjoy the experience.
So LawVu is kind of the hospital in that analogy then. I mean, the LawVu has contract lifecycle management, has document management, and that becomes the repository for the contracts that you can then pull into the operating room. I love that analogy, and work on them in ClauseBuddy, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, that's indeed how we see things. So you make a comparison, you create a new version, you do a review where you don't like the counterparty's arguments, you make some changes to it, and then of course you need to save this again. Then you switch to LawVu, where you just make another version, make it save in the right environment, right next to the previous version. All the search capabilities, retrieving that again next week in the next round of the negotiations. That's where we rely on LawVu to make it shine.
And then we kick into all the workflows afterwards, the approval processes, the thorough signing, or the lifecycle management to kind of run those contracts. So the two products really work hand in glove together.
So we're talking here without the visuals to explain what we're talking about, but maybe you can kind of walk us through a little bit what this does look like from a user perspective. How do they take advantage of this integration in the normal course of contract drafting workflow?
Shall I do a quick run through of how the integration works, or?
Well, if you want to describe it, we're not doing a demo here. So, but if you just more descriptively, I mean, so do I start in Word? Do I start in LawVu? How do I get started on it?
It depends how the work has come in. So if you're taking through LawVu, where you have someone inside the organization that has a contract they want sent through the legal, that'd come through the intake portal inside LawVu, that would be sent to the legal team. The legal team will then receive that, look at it, and then, okay, this is something they want to work on, and that's when they'd load it into Word. So straight from LawVu, load it into Word, and then you open the ClauseBuddy integration inside Word. And so without the user ever kind of realizing the switching kind of between systems and everything, once they move into Word, then that's when ClauseBuddy kind of takes over on the drafting. And then, as Maarten said, you kind of get in all the operational sides of the drafting, working that through, make all your red lines, all your changes, and then that will just save back into LawVu, which you may then send out to the other side, or you'll communicate with the internal business user around this kind of where things are at. And then from there, it just depends whether that's then sent out to the other side for redlining and come back in. The same process is completed until you're in a stage where you're in agreement, and then it gets sent through LawVu out for signature.
And Maarten, I wonder if you could just kind of quickly describe some of the features that ClauseBuddy brings to this process. I mean, I know you've got within ClauseBuddy, you've got features such as truffle hunt, which I love the name of, in auto suggest, document chat. Can you talk a little bit about how those help you in the contract review process?
Yeah, so for example, the truffle hunt, you're looking for the golden nuggets somewhere in the woods, like you have hundreds, if not thousands of contracts that you've previously contributed to, negotiated. So they would, for example, be stored on the LawVu platform. And what you can then do is to actually search for interesting clauses that were extracted from those contracts. So because maybe you're now drafting a completely new contract, you're looking for that one clause that you've written 3 years ago. You're like, oh, I've negotiated it. Where is it again? It's one of these features where just in a few seconds, you can then find something in your drafting history. And so the pushing, the pulling of the files, that's seamlessly connected between the two platforms. so that this is as easy as possible, where you can really rely on what's already stored inside of the LawVu platform. As another example, we recently added a feature where you can summarize changes, so you get back some track changes, so a red line version of a counterparty. It's stored within LawVu. You just got it, by email. You send it through the workflows. It ends up in the LawVu platform, and then you're like, hey, I don't want to read through this ocean of changes. Let me have the Gen AI automatically make a summary of what actually changed, where are all these red lines about. Give me a quick overview of what I can expect to do with this new version towards the counterparty.
So again, you're working in ClauseBuddy, you're able to hunt against the documents that are within LawVu, and that's essentially your repository there.
Yeah. So we've always been about, we are a plugin to an open Word file. And so it needs to come from somewhere. Of course, you can store it locally, you can store it in SharePoint, but there are so many features that you would be missing out. And that's why we've always been like, hey, we need to find a good platform that we can partner with, where all these files can be stored. And now, while you're drafting, often you do have a need to compare to something else, to see like I've written this before, where is it? And that's also where we piggyback on the storage and the search capabilities of LawVu.
Sam, anything to add to that?
Well, I think it's, in some ways, just the power of ClauseBuddy. We look at where we've kind of focused on kind of the workflows for our users, how we help them communicate and collaborate with each other, and obviously the technology that Maarten and his team have built up over the years around just the detail of actually editing documents and controlling that through Word. The power of the two platforms together is years and years of experience on either side in a similar workflow, but not doing the same thing. And I think that's when the sort of two companies came together, is realizing it would take us so long to try and recreate what ClauseBuddy's had, and vice versa. Like, just, the partnership makes a lot of sense, and we've already got a lot of clients that are really enjoying the two systems being more deeply integrated together.
So I heard you saying you've been developing and refining this integration over the course of a year or so at this point. This is now available and live to customers?
Absolutely.
More. Already some customers, quite some shared customers using it. So it's not something that we launched yesterday. No, it's been in production for several months. Of course, we still have ideas of how to further explore it, how to deepen the relationship even further from a technical perspective, also from a company perspective. But it is already live, customers happily using it.
And is there what does a customer have to do to activate this integration? Is there anything they need to do at their end?
They're still basically get in touch with our team on either side, and then we hook it up. So the technical invitation and getting up and running is relatively quick. But it's basically one email, one phone call, and then we're selling to lawyers, so I'd love to say that it's nice and straightforward, but everyone wants to read a contract and then redline it and send it back to us. So there is that kind of process, but the technical piece is actually easy. That's just the getting the users in, talking to us, getting them divine and looking at the product, and then they're away. So there's some customers that have been on ClauseBuddy that have moved into LawVu quite quickly, and then vice versa, people that have been with us a couple of years, and we've talked about the integration. They got incredibly excited, and they've been up and running in a matter of no time.
Anything else either of you would like to point out about this announcement that we haven't talked about yet?
I have one. Where we also really found each other was in the shared vision on what Gen AI should be doing, where it is heading towards the future. We both have a very realistic view on this. We're very much into Gen AI, been looking very closely at it. Half of the toolbox is Gen AI. LawVu has been constantly adding features as well, but we have a realistic view. Like, we're not fanboys accepting anything that is there, because lawyers are still divided on this subject. And we sense here that taking a realistic view, being honest, explaining what it is, and not selling some magic, that's where the shared vision also really comes in, and where we found each other.
Sam, anything else?
Yeah, we've spent a long time, I suppose if you look at our website now compared to a couple of years ago, obviously we lead with AI kind of workspace. Again, it's that real focus around efficiency and accuracy. So we've been looking at kind of simple features that we've kind of rolled out. We spend a lot of time making sure that the accuracy is there, because it's probably the one thing about AI is that it's incredibly creative. But unfortunately, the legal world being creative and different every single time you do something is not super useful. So trying to spend the time to make sure you get consistent results, consistent data back the whole time, and that you can have citations to any questions they're asking. And I think that's something that we spend a lot of time in conversations with each other about our kind of approach to utilizing AI. Like, this is the worst that AI is ever going to be. And so really for us, it's been about how do you set up the platform to take advantage of the new models as they come out over the years. So yeah, a very shared kind of alignment over what that strategy and approach is.
Well, Maarten, Sam, thanks so much for coming on the show today and telling us all about this news, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That does it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or find us on YouTube. Just search for LawNext PR. You can also find all the episodes on the LawNext Legal Tech Directory under the Resources tab. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for joining us today.